ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਸਤਿ ਸ੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ ਜੀ ਆਇਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਵੈਲਕਮ ਟੂ ਦ ਸ਼ੋ। ਗੱਲ ਸਾਡੀ ਹੋ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ ਜੀ ਕਿਸਾਨ ਇਨ ਨੀਡ। ਤੁਸੀਂ ਡੋਨੇਸ਼ਨਾਂ 'ਚ ਇੰਨੇ ਦੇ ਚੁੱਕੇ ਆ 273,000, ਉਹਦੇ ਲਈ ਬਹੁਤ ਬਹੁਤ ਧੰਨਵਾਦ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ। ਟੋਟਲ ਸਾਡਾ 3 ਲੱਖ ਤੋਂ ਉੱਤੇ ਹੋ ਜਾਣਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਜੋ ਕਿ ਕਿਸਾਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਜਾਊਗਾ। ਮੇਰੇ ਅਗਲੇ ਗੈਸਟ ਆ ਜੀ ਇੱਕ ਇੱਦਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿਅਕਤੀ ਜੋ ਕਿ ਮੀਡੀਆ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਅੱਖ ਰੱਖਦੇ ਆ। ਆਪਾਂ ਇਹਨੂੰ ਸਾਧੇ ਆ ਕਿ ਇਹ ਪੂਰਾ ਯਾਨੀ ਕਿ ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਅਖਬਾਰਾਂ ਦਾ ਰਿਵਿਊ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੁੰਦਾ, ਇਹ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਲਈ ਕਰਦੇ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ, ਬਟ ਔਨ ਅ ਸਿੱਖੀ ਪਰਸਪੈਕਟਿਵ। ਸੋ ਸਿੱਖ ਪ੍ਰੈਸ ਐਸੋਸੀਏਸ਼ਨ ਜੋ ਸਾਡੇ ਜਗਰਾਜ ਸਿੰਘ ਨੇ ਸੈਟਅਪ ਕੀਤੀ ਸੀਗੀ ਫਰੋਮ ਬੇਸਿਕਸ ਆਫ ਸਿੱਖੀ, ਜੋ ਕਿ ਆਪਣੇ ਸੱਜਣ ਦੋਸਤ ਸੀਗੇ ਜੋ ਸਾਡੇ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਵਿੱਚ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਨਹੀਂ ਰਹੇ ਸਰੀਰਕ ਤੌਰ 'ਤੇ, ਬਟ ਇਨ ਸਪਿਰਿਟ ਹੀ ਇਜ਼ ਆਲਵੇਜ਼ ਵਿਦ ਅਸ, ਔਰ ਉਹਨੇ ਦੇਣਾ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਹਮੇਸ਼ਾ ਆ। ਜਸਵੀਰ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ I would say ਆਪਣੇ ਸਾਊਥ ਹਾਲ ਦਾ ਮੁੰਡਾ, ਚੰਗਾ ਹੋਇਆ ਲੰਡਨ ਵਾਲੇ ਆ ਗਏ ਮਾੜਾ ਮੋਟਾ। ਆ ਬਰਮਿੰਘਮ ਵਾਲਿਆਂ ਨੇ ਕਬਜ਼ਾ ਕਰਕੇ ਬੈਠੇ ਸੀਗੇ ਸਾਡੀ ਜ਼ਮੀਨਾਂ ਤੇ ਇੱਥੇ। I'm glad like we got Stu Bangles on, we got Benny on, and now we've got Jasveer from you on. So ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਤਾਂ ਸਤਿ ਸ਼੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ, ਵੈਲਕਮ ਟੂ ਦ ਸ਼ੋ।
ਸਤਿ ਸ਼੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ।
ਜਸਵੀਰ, ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸਿੱਖ ਪ੍ਰੈਸ ਐਸੋਸੀਏਸ਼ਨ ਤੋਂ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ, ਸਾਨੂੰ ਥੋੜ੍ਹਾ ਦੱਸੋ what the Sikh Press Association is.
So the Sikh Press Association, we're a news agency that work between the Sikh community and the media. As you said, we were founded by the late, great, by Jagraj Singh.
Yeah.
So we are a project of his charity, Everything's 13. Everything's 13 run a few different projects, one of which is Basics of Sikhi, probably the most well-known, Chidi Sangat and Mighty Khalsa. So we are funded by the Sangat to work between the Sikh community and the media. So if the media needs something from the Sikh community, they want to know who to speak to about the Kisan protest, about the farmers' protest, they can speak to us and we can direct them
Point them in the right direction to the experts and stuff like that.
And vice versa too. So if there's somebody doing something in the community that say, I want to help get this in the media, they can come speak to us, and I can use my experience to help them, and with my team of course as well.
How long has the Sikh PA been running?
So we officially launched in 2015. Bhai Jagraj Singh had this concept that you shouldn't launch unless you have a substantial amount of work behind you already, which is a really good thinking from my perspective. So we actually were working since probably mid 2014 before we officially launched, and I've been working there full time, so it's been a full-time organization since April 2015.
Right. And what does your work involve? What work involvement here? So if I say ke Jasveer sanu das ke in a day tusi karde ki hain, what would you say?
Oh, quite a difficult question to answer because
that's why I asked it.
There's so many different aspects of the job, so many different things that I could be doing. Like, let's say today is a working day. I'm here this evening with you fine people. Earlier in the evening, I was part of a national UK discussion between Sikh community representatives to offer kind of a media perspective on a current issue. I'm also speaking to media folk. I might get a phone call from somebody at the BBC that again says, I want something, I want to speak to somebody in Berkshire about the farmers' protest, maybe somebody who's got family there or something like that. So it could be PR, it could be journalism, it could even just be like community firefighting, it could just be advising, it could be one of several different things. So there's a lot to it, but if it's connecting with media, if it's a issue of public concern for the Sikh community, then we're happy to kind of step into it.
मैं एक चीज़ देखता हूँ कि it looks like ਜਦੋਂ ਵੀ ਕੋਈ ਨਾ ਕੋਈ word Singh is used in a tweet or in a news article somewhere, the news lot are jumping on it, news lot are on it. है ना, ਤੁਸੀਂ ਉਹ ਦੇਖਦੇ ਆ ਕਿ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਇਹ ਸਹੀ ਵਰਤਿਆ ਜਾ ਰਿਹਾ ਜਾਂ ਨਹੀਂ, is it in a good light, is that essentially what big part of your job, you're scanning the whole news for looking at ਕੋਈ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਦੇ ਖਬਰ ਹੈਗੀ ਆ?
Thank you for bringing that up because I left that out, but that is a big part of our job, and I guess you could say it's kind of like policing the media when it comes to Sikh issues. And I don't want to act like we're the police and you're in trouble for doing certain things, but there are cases where we have to do something like that. For example, this time last year, a big article came out across many of the UK's biggest media platforms, which was saying Sikh gangs involved in a stabbing incident. Right. Where I think 3 people died.
Oh, Ilford which ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੋਇਆ ਸੀ,
exactly, and they're describing them as Sikh gangs. So that's what we have to
gang ਨਹੀਂ ਸੀ, ਉਹ ਤਾਂ ਬਿਲਡਰਾਂ ਵਿੱਚ dispute ਸੀਗਾ, which we now know what it is, and at that moment we couldn't talk out because the trial was going on and everything like this,
but nevertheless we work behind the scenes, we speak to those
who are the media made it out as if there was gangs the war ਸੀਗਾ.
So I mean you would never hear like Christian gangs in Liverpool going at each other or anything like that. So they did make out like it was a Sikh gang conflict. And that's where we have to step in and speak to the appropriate people. And sometimes we can make changes happen. Sometimes we can just let them know about the community dissatisfaction. So they're getting that negative backlash on social media, and they know next time perhaps we shouldn't take this route because it's making us look bad to the community.
Right, okay. So how hard is it to police like nationwide? Ida matlab thanu har akhbar padni pendi hai, har khabar padni pendi hai, or like even if you do a Google search, like 4 mahine lag juge like the words that come up, and how do you pick and choose ke kehdi khabar sahi hai ya nahi? Tusi verify kidda karte hain, and do you tusi sariyan khabar te aune ha ya phir jithe where you feel actually no, hold on, the media have covered it right.
Yeah.
You just leave that, then what happens then?
Well, of course, there's always occasions where the media covers things perfectly, and we have no say in that. We can always try and add in a little bit of context. For example, we might see media cover some of the Langar Seva groups, like Midlands Langar Seva Society, and they might talk about the great work they do, but they might not mention the fact that what they do is Langar, and it's a 500-year-old concept that's been running every single day by the Sikh community, and that's where we kind of want to add in the concept, the context, sorry. But in general, how we police the media, we do have to do loads of Google searches. There's a term that came up in 2020 called doom scrolling. Doom scrolling means scrolling through your social media feeds looking for doom. And I guess that's a big part of my job. We're going through Twitter, just seeing, what stories are out there. Yeah, and where we need to step in and where we need to say, look, you've missed some context here, or you could have spoken to this person. Because sometimes you get UK media writing articles which would be, why does a Sikh wear a turban, as they would say, why does a Sikh wear a turban? And they get somebody who doesn't write a turban to write that article. Yeah. And we're going to say, well, why didn't you ask actual Sikh that wears a turban? They do actually write in English, Some of them are quite well educated. They can do it. So that's the kind of things we do. And it can be difficult, but, this is what we're paid to do.
Coming to the Kisaan protests and the farmers' protests in particular, do you feel that there's been adequate media coverage in the UK about it, and in relation to the scale of the protests?
In relation to the scale of the protest, that's a good last line you used there, because in relation to the scale of the protest, we might be talking about the biggest protest in history.
I think we are.
Yeah.
I think we're talking about the largest protest ever in the world, in history.
Yeah. On certain specific days, 250 million people taking part in certain demonstrations.
That's a lot of people.
That's a lot of people. So in relation to that, I would actually have to say no, because we've seen smaller protests get daily coverage of, front page news coverage, headline news coverage on your TV, 10 p.m. BBC News scheduling. But then I have to balance that out with the fact that the Sikh community, the Punjabi community, who are most vocal about it, who are most involved in it in terms of diaspora work, activism, and also leading it in Delhi, we are no more than barely over 2% of the population of any country in the world.
Yeah.
So then, we have to take that into context as well. And sometimes I have to kind of make people understand, John Smith from up in Yorkshire, he doesn't really care about what is going on in Delhi with the Punjabi Sikh community. So has it been adequate? I would have to say no, because look, we just had your last guest on and they were saying, why isn't this as big as other movements have been?
Black Lives Matter.
Black Lives Matter, for example. And perhaps that is because there hasn't been as much mainstream media coverage as there needs to be. At the same time, I can say in the last 30 or so days, the Sikh Press Association, we've arranged and helped facilitate 2 different mainstream BBC National News reports on it by providing them with interviewees and footage and so forth. But is that enough? I guess, to be honest, no.
Why is that not enough? Because ਜਦੋਂ ਮੈਂ TV station ਲਾਉਣਾ BBC ਵਾਲਾ ਜਾਂ ITV ਵਾਲਾ ਜਾਂ Channel 4 ਵਾਲਾ ਜਾਂ Sky News ਵਾਲਾ ਕੋਈ ਨਾ ਕੋਈ Asian ਤਾਂ ਹੈਗਾ ਹੀ ਆ. So there's loads of Asian reporters on Sky News, loads of Asians in the BBC. I know, I go to the BBC every month. So I know I go to Sky News almost every couple of months. ਮੈਨੂੰ ਸਾਰੇ ਦੀਦੇ ਆ, and they look brown just like me, and they're the same color as me. So why aren't these guys getting the information out there? The other thing is, do you think that our own media, jo sade kol hega ya, and ਭਾਵੇਂ ਉਹ print media ਹੋਵੇ ਜਾਂ radio ਹੋਵੇ ਜਾਂ TV ਹੋਵੇ, do you think we're diverse enough to hit their markets, or are we just happy sitting in our bubbles and we don't ਹੁਣ ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਆਪਣੇ ਰੇਡੀਓ ਸਟੇਸ਼ਨ ਜਾਂ ਆਪਣੇ TV station ਆ on which are we just happy ਕਿ ਆਪਣਾ audience ਬਣਿਆ ਆਪਾਂ ਉਹਦੇ ਤੇ ਜਾਈਏ? Do we not endeavor to break into mainstream? Are we not good enough? Or what's the whole thing there? There's quite a few questions there.
Yeah, two questions. I'll break them down. So the second one that you asked about, are we kind of restricting ourselves into our bubbles? I would actually have to agree that we are, agree if that's what you meant, because now that I think about it, I'm kind of, put on the spot here, but there are many avenues that we could have pursued. For example, Steel Bangles, this is probably the first time he's been on a Sikh news outlet. He's one of the UK's biggest artists that is regularly talking about, how his Sikh faith inspires him, his Punjabi background. Why hasn't he been on before?
Ori palna enni desi and his dad is such a gem and such a desi banda. I can imagine that his Anna palna is that, but yeah, obviously, like I feel as if we've failed to integrate and
to break those barriers, because do something for the younger generation that could actually connect with, give them something more relatable, and there is a failure definitely on a lot of our media, that we're not doing enough to kind of engage with different generations. There's not the content there for them, very simply. If we look at the content that a lot of generations, the younger generations, are engaging with, you don't find that in our kind of Punjabi media. The first part of the question you asked was, you see so many Asian and Apne, Sikh, Punjabi. Yeah, definitely, and we have a lot of them. Firstly, why aren't they facilitating the news? Firstly, a lot of them are. I have to say, I've spoken to many of them.
There are quite a few that are, yeah?
And they are working hard, having those discussions in the newsroom, trying to put things forward. But again, they have to balance that out with the fact that their job isn't to push Sikh news, Punjabi news, and they don't want to get pigeonholed themselves.
Some are just radio presenters or TV presenters on another company, and plus bureaucracy both on the...
Definitely, exactly. And there's a lot of kind of that, office politics in these big corporations where you don't want to be pigeonholed, or you don't want to be seen to be a troublemaker and saying, why aren't you covering this certain story? But here's the thing, Bhai Jugaad Singh, great visionary, the reason I'm sitting here in front of you, he knew that you can't give these people the burden of that obligation, because they're getting paid by the BBC. So they can't be kicking off at the BBC as
you can't kick off with your employer.
Exactly.
You'll be out on your backside.
Exactly. You're not covering this enough. You're against our community, or you're any of those things. They have to keep away. So that's why the Sikh Press Association is here to do that for them. They can get in touch with us. We can speak to the newsroom editors. We can provide them with the content. We just had Randir, a Pride of Britain winner, some huge award in UK, out in Delhi. I was phoning up newsrooms every day saying, you interview him, he's on the ground now, he's a Pride of Britain award winner, he's a really respected character across the country, and that wasn't connecting. So I mean, there is some sort of failure there, but we shouldn't place that burden on those that are employed by the organizations. But I will say, just the final point, representation does matter. Because, for example, Ranveer Singh, who was on Strictly Come Dancing, she's been very helpful to us to get news about, say, Jagdar Singh Johal, the Free Jaggi Now campaign, on Good Morning Britain, for example.
I see a Balwinder from ITV.
Yeah, amazing.
She's very good.
Absolutely fantastic.
And, there are a few...
Monica Plaha,
yeah, Monica
BBC,
Plaha,
brilliant people. They're doing good work.
Everyone's trying to do their bit within their sort of atmosphere.
And it is difficult, and it's difficult for them, so we empathize.
India, media ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਰੀਏ, right, ਆਪਾਂ ਹੁਣ ਤੈਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਹਾਸਾ ਆਉਂਦਾ, ਮੈਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਹਾਸਾ ਆਉਂਦਾ, right? We know how it works. I've in the last month, ਮੈਂ ਸਾਰੇ ਦੇਖੇ ਆ ਜਿੰਨੇ ਵੀ ਸਕੈਂਡਲ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ, ਭਾਵੇਂ ਉਹ ਰਾਜਦੀਪ ਸਰਦਸਾਈ ਦਾ ਆ, ਭਾਵੇਂ ਉਹ ਅਰਨਬ ਦਾ, ਗੋਸਵਾਮੀ ਦਾ ਆ, ਹੈਨਾ, ਮੈਂ ਸਾਰੇ ਦੇਖੇ
on his show actually the other week.
Oh, right, okay. ਮੈਂ ਉਹ ਦੇਖੇ ਕਿ ਸਾਰੇ ਕਿ what the scandals are. It works very differently over there. So how can we make sure we get our point across over there?
Honestly,
or is hope lost there?
Yeah, I have to say hope is lost for the majority of media out there. India is ranked 142nd out of 180 countries for press freedom, the latest ranking.
No way.
I would say that's too high for them, probably, because there is so much innate corruption. No. There's recent transcripts about Arnab Goswami, 142nd out of 180 countries.
Come on, India, man, come on.
So it is really just far gone. I feel like it's such a huge country. They have hundreds of millions that are just attuned. So they have their set audience. They don't need to deviate. They give that set audience what they want. They have a formula that works to keep that audience engaged. They don't care about, real news, if you will.
It's quite heartbreaking to see that In India, they report what they want, and I've seen clips of people saying, "Eh na dikhalo, aa dikhal deo, aa dikhal deo, nahi aapa eh nahi dikhalna." And it just seems as if, it's all about a numbers game there. It's all about this 2-3-letter word, TRP. And it's all about that ratings. Ratings, de vich oh fas gaya.
I mean, it is ratings, but it's also influence from money, politics, and just the general communal issues in India and who they're trying to represent, the average Indian, the general population. So there's a lot of influence there behind the scenes in terms of what they can and can't say and where the pressure lies about what to cover.
So, Jasveer, to wrap up, we would say, first of all, thank you for what you're doing. But we got a lot of kids out there who are studying journalism or want to get into journalism.
Brilliant.
They see a newscaster and they say, you know what, we want to be that. And you should.
Definitely.
You should. When you see, like me or Jasveer on Sky News or BBC News, you shouldn't aspire to be like us. I always say, don't aspire to be like us. You need to aspire to be better than us.
Definitely.
Hannah? You need to become better than us, so we'll be proud of you. And what's your advice for them kids?
My advice to them is learn the industry, but also stand your ground. Know you have a unique perspective and position to offer, and things take time. It's a hard game, so bide your time in there, work hard. And the Sikh Press Association is here to help anyone that wants to connect with the Sikh community in an authentic way and present a fair reflection of the community too.
Wow. So, thank you very much, Jasveer. Good to see you.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
No, thanks for representing London,
coming on after steel bangles, it's always going to be hard. But
listen, man, you've done it. Apna bada mota, as if we got feel, I'll be coming after everyone. Appa jo pehla ek do announcement kar diye, apne khas taur pe jo lokan ne sadi ਇਸ show banaun ch possibility ਕੀਤੀ ਹੈ. Without these people, this show tonight would not have been possible, and I think they deserve a big shout out. First of all, Harry Singh from One Tech UK Telecom, ਉਹ ਪੂਰੀ ਫੋਨ ਲਾਈਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਸੇਵਾ on ਅੱਜ ਕੀਤੀ ਆ free. So Harry Singh, ਬਹੁਤ ਬਹੁਤ ਤੈਨੂੰ thank you. ਤੇਰੇ ਬਿਨਾ ਸਾਡੀਆਂ ਤਾਰਾਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਮਿਲਣੀਆਂ ਸੀਗੀਆਂ ਤਾਂ ਤੂੰ ਬੜੀਆਂ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਲਾਤੀਆਂ ਫੋਨ ਲਾਈਨਾਂ. Thank you very much from One Tech UK Telecom. ਫਿਰ Kudos Music, ਜੋ ਕਿ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਸਾਰੀਆਂ ਸਕਰੀਨਾਂ ਲਾਈਆਂ. DJ H, ਹਰਦੀਪ ਕਟਾਰੀਆ, Jazz Johal, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਸਾਰੀਆਂ ਸਕਰੀਨਾਂ ਲਾਈਆਂ. AV ਸਿਸਟਮ ਆਡੀਓ ਦਾ, ਮਾਈਕਾ ਮੂਕਾ ਜੋ ਵੀ ਹੈਗਾ ਸਾਰਾ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕੀਤਾ ਹੈਗਾ. ਉਹ ਸਾਰਾ ਫ੍ਰੀ ਲਈ ਕੀਤਾ ਹੈ. ਕੋਈ ਨਹੀਂ ਇੱਥੇ ਅੱਜ ਕੱਲ੍ਹ ਫ੍ਰੀ ਲਈ ਕੁਛ ਦਿੰਦਾ ਜੀ. ਫ੍ਰੀ ਲਈ ਤੁਸੀਂ 10 ਪਾਉਂਡ ਉਧਾਰੇ ਮੰਗ ਕੇ ਦੇਖ ਲਓ ਕਿਸੇ ਤੋਂ. ਅਗਲਾ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਉਸੇ ਵੇਲੇ 100 ਗੱਲਾਂ ਸੁਣਾਉਂਦਾ, ਨਾਲੇ ਦੂਜੀ ਦਿਹਾੜੀ ਮੰਗਣ ਲੱਗ ਪੈਂਦਾ ਮੁੜ ਕੇ. ਤੂੰ ਯਾਰ 10 ਪਾਉਂਡ ਨਹੀਂ ਦਿੱਤੇ, ਕੱਲ੍ਹ ਰਾਤੀ ਬਾਅਦ ਲਏ ਸੀ ਤੂੰ. ਇੱਦਾਂ ਤੂੰ ਹੈ ਨਾ 10 ਵਾਹ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਬਟੂਆ ਹਲਕਾ ਜਿਹਾ ਲੱਗਦਾ. ਸੋ ਹਾਂਜੀ, you try it. ਹਲੇ ਹਜ਼ਾਰਾਂ ਦਾ equipment. This screen behind us, I couldn't even dream of having one. ਪਰ ਇੱਦਾਂ ਦੀ ਪਿੰਡ ਲਾਉਣੀ ਚਾਹੀਦੀ ਆ, ਹਰ ਪਿੰਡ 'ਚ ਲੱਗਣੀ ਚਾਹੀਦੀ ਇੱਦਾਂ ਦੀ. Like the old days when you used to have a whole big screen and ਸਾਰੇ ਇਕੱਠੇ ਹੋ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਸੀ. That's how I feel today. I feel like I'm in a BBC
I feel like a match of the day or something.
Yeah, that's what I feel like. I feel like I
start analysing the game.
But Tottenham ਦੀ ਨਾ ਗੱਲ ਕਰੀ. ਅੱਜ ਹੋਰ ਜੀ ਬਾਬਾ ਜਸਵੰਤ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ ਦੀ ਜੋ ਸੇਵਾਦਾਰ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਬਹੁਤ ਮਾਇਆ ਦਿੱਤੀ ਹੈਗੀ ਆ, ਅਤੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਬਹੁਤ ਬਹੁਤ ਧੰਨਵਾਦ ਜੋ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ. ਸਾਡੀ ਮੀਡੀਆ ਕੰਟੈਂਟ ਟੀਮ, ਅਮਰਜੋਤ ਚਾਨਾ, ਸਟੋਰੀ ਐਂਡ ਮੋਸ਼ਨ ਸਿਗਨੇਚਰ ਤੋਂ, ਜੋ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਪੂਰੀ ਸੇਵਾ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਆ. ਫਿਲਮਿੰਗ ਦਾ ਸਾਰੇ ਕੈਮਰੇ ਕੁਮਰੇ ਉਹਦੇ ਹੀ ਚੱਲਦੇ ਆ. ਉਹ ਜੀ ਆ ਮੇਰਾ ਖਿਆਲ ਕੈਮਰੇ ਹੀ ਬਹੁਤ, ਮੈਂ ਤਾਂ ਕੈਮਰੇ ਹੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਇੰਨੇ ਦੇਖੇ ਲਾਈਫ 'ਚ. ਆਪਣੇ ਕੋਲ ਤਾਂ ਦੇਸੀ ਜਿਹਾ ਹੁੰਦਾ Z1 ਵਾਲਾ, ਅਤੇ ਉਹ ਮੇਰਾ ਖਿਆਲ ਹੁਣ 100 ਪਾਉਂਡ ਦਾ ਬਣੀ ਹੋਣਾ ਵੈਲਿਊ 'ਚ. ਜਿਸ ਵੇਲੇ ਲਿਆ ਸੀ ਯਾਰ 2000 ਦਾ ਸੀਗਾ. ਅਤੇ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਕੋਲ ਵਧੀਆ ਕੈਮਰੇ ਆ, ਮਾਈਕਰੋਫੋਨ ਆ, ਲਾਇਓ ਆ. So it mate, I feel like I seriously feel as if I'm on Match of the Day, like you said earlier.
You're Gary Lineker tonight.
ਭਰਾਵਾ ਨਾ ਬਣਾ ਮੈਨੂੰ. ਵਾਹ ਬੜਾ. The tech team behind the desk, ਸਾਡੇ ਆਹ ਡੈਸਕ ਲੱਗਾ ਆ, ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਦੀਦਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਪਰ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਦੀਦੇ ਆ. ਮੈਨੂੰ ਇੰਨੇ ਸੋਹਣੇ ਸੁਨੱਖੇ ਚਿਹਰੇ ਦੀਦੇ ਆ. ਆ ਸਾਰੇ ਮੁੰਡੇ ਆਏ ਹੋ ਆ ਜੀ 4 ਵਜੇ ਦੇ, ਜੋ ਕਿ ਸੇਵਾ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ. ਸਾਡੇ ਟੈਕ ਟੀਮ ਜੌਨ, ਹਰਦੀਪ, ਜਸਪ੍ਰੀਤ, ਵਿਕੇਸ਼, Pap, Eddie, a big shout out to them, because without you lot, this show wouldn't be possible. Because I've got one of you on the mic, one of you in my ear, one of you has been in my ear, one of you has been in my ear more than my car Ali has. So, ਬਹੁਤ ਵਧਾਈਆਂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ. Thanks. and you know, thank you very much. ਹਾਂਜੀ ਸੋ ਨਾਓ ਆਪਾਂ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਦਾ ਥੈਂਕ ਯੂ ਕਰ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਐਂਡ ਆਪਾਂ ਪੋਲੀਟੀਕਲ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਕੇ ਹਟੇ ਮੀਡੀਆ ਦੀ ਹੁਣ ਆਪਾਂ ਇੱਕ ਹੋਰ ਪੋਲੀਟੀਕਲ ਆਈਕਨ ਦੇ ਵੱਲ ਜਾਣਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਆ ਆਪਾਂ ਇੱਕ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਵੀਡੀਓ ਦਿਖਾਣੀ ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਆਪਾਂ ਇੰਟਰਵਿਊ ਦਿਖਾ ਲਾਂਗੇ ਸਾਡੇ MP ਜੋ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ ਸਲੋਹ ਦੇ ਲਈ ਤਨਮਨਜੀਤ ਸਿੰਘ ਢੇਸੀ ਜੋ ਕਿ ਸਾਡੇ ਸੱਜਣ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ ਸਾਡੇ ਰਿਸ਼ਤੇਦਾਰ ਵੀ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ ਹੁਣ ਤੂੰ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਹਰਿਆਬ ਆਪਣੇ ਰਿਸ਼ਤੇਦਾਰਾਂ ਦੀ ਫਿਲਮਾਂ ਬਣਾਈ ਜਾਂਦਾ but me and Jasveer aren't related but we're related by Southall ਸਾਡੀ ਸਾਊਥ ਹਾਲ ਦੀ ਰਿਸ਼ਤੇਦਾਰੀ ਐਗਜ਼ੈਕਟਲੀ ਕਿੰਗ ਸਟਰੀਟ ਦੀ ਕਿੰਗ ਸਟਰੀਟ ਸੋ ਆਪਾਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਆ ਸ਼ੋਰੀਲ ਦੇਖੋ ਐਂਡ ਜੋ ਸ਼ੈਡੋ ਰੇਲਵੇ ਦੇ ਵੀ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ ਮਿਨਿਸਟਰ ਤਨਮਨਜੀਤ ਢੇਸੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਇੰਟਰਵਿਊ ਦੇਖੋ ਮੈਂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਮਿਲੂੰਗਾ ਉਹ ਸਾਰੀਆਂ ਇੰਟਰਵਿਊਆਂ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਲੈਟਸ ਹੈਵ ਅ ਲੁੱਕ ਵਾਟ they've got to say